Trust is key. People trust institutions and brands, but ultimately people trust people. Trust in management, however, is low. Would you like to increase your C-level trust score and enhance your brand and share price or equity value? Then this is for you. Relevant, informative, actionable. Let's get started. I am Alexander Engelhardt of Deep Value Advisors. We protect, unlock and create reputation capital. Please connect on LinkedIn. If you seek project support, send me an email. If I do A, will you do B? If I cannot enforce it, how can I rely that you will? Eliminating the need for trust is possible only in simulations or some automated transactions, but life is a social affair. As long as humans interact with humans, trust is the bridge between the known and the unknown, a reasonable expectation that the person I'm dealing with will most likely behave in a certain way. How does trust work? Trust is granted. The trust of things or feels there is reason to believe that the trustee is trustworthy. But how do we arrive at that? What is the process? Can it itself be trusted? How can it be applied and improved? People trust people. More exactly, people trust signs and signals. We look for hints that point at trustworthiness, even unconsciously, when we perceive and evaluate facial micro-expressions. A sign is any property that we notice in others and to which we attribute another property. We all display signs, always, willingly or unwillingly. We cannot not display signs. We perceive a sign and infer an implied meaning. A signal is a sign too, but one that is emitted on purpose and with the intention to convey a certain meaning. Signs and signals can be clear, vague or ambiguous. Clear signals are rare. Most signals are mixed, and most often we perceive several signals that point at a complex property, such as management capability or leadership. And signs and signals can be mimicked. Unless discovered, a fake sign or signals triggers an outright wrong attribution. How then can we discern authentic from faked signals? One way is to dissect the signals one by one, asking, is this a sign that is necessarily attributed to the person and emitted unknowingly and unwillingly? Or is this a signal, a sign that is displayed on purpose with the intention to create an impression? Do signs or signals contradict each other? Does the whole back up the implied meaning, and if so, what is its essence and limited extent? Does past experience back up the assumption that these very signs and signals and trustworthiness indeed correlate? And is this how the real world works? Once we have established that a sign or signal is suitable, how can we know it is reliable? We look at the context first. Association, affiliation, referrals. How long is the person in business? Which business? Past and present behavior and consistency. We then look at the motives, intentions, objectives, observed behavior, stated intentions and actions, explanations for past, present or announced future behavior. If we cannot see the motives and interests or must assume irrational behavior, can we then observe actual actions or omissions? And if we cannot observe the person doing or not doing something, can we at least observe consequences of such person's behavior? Follow the money. Can we go backwards from there and, with sufficient probability, infer actions, interests or motives? We then look at the choices available to the signaler under the circumstances. What are his or her options and limitations? Maybe the behavior we want to avoid and would risk by putting our trust into that person is not available to such person. If it is, maybe it is too costly an alternative. Then we assess the price for the signaler to emit a fake sign and whether he can afford mimicry. Signaling involves signaling costs, such as offering a fake reference. How big is the incentive to offer a fake reference? How much would it hurt if the bluff was called? Vice versa, we need to ask ourselves what the costs are of signal testing, such as actually checking a reference. What is the actual benefit of confirmation versus potential embarrassment? In summary, people assess context and circumstances, look for signs and signals, and infer a certain level of trustworthiness. Assessing the trustworthiness of institutions is different. Here we look at institutionalized interest too. Being a federal agency is a sign, but does it imply trustworthiness? Maybe not always. When assessing the trustworthiness of a brand, we look at consistency of brand claims and brand promises and actual company behavior and performance. Not every company will pass the CSR or ESG saying-doing test. Assessing the trustworthiness of a company is even more complicated in that equity and debt investors and other stakeholders seek proof ex ante, but must resort to ex post proof in practice. Company stakeholders therefore require a much greater level of transparency from companies than they would request from any individual, so that they can see with their own eyes, ideally before the fact. This requires best practice, corporate communications and investor relations, and third-party validation. Given the very real possibility that ratings, research and auditors might not always be independent, or that supervisory boards might fail at supervision, or that even the regulator might have blind spots, transparency is key. Corporate trust signals deemed too expensive to mimic were, for example, being listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, being regulated by the German Federal Financial Supervisory Authority, having Big Four audited accounts, or being subject to independent expert review by the German Financial Reporting Enforcement Panel. But are those signs reliable? It would have appeared so, until a recent scandal evidenced that even a German DAX top 30 company can be a fraud. How can we trust that there is no rogue engineer at work, no crooked management, or that a company isn't fundamentally corrupt? Matter of fact, being subject to German financial regulation and not having the wrong auditor will still be suitable signs, but no longer reliable signs in itself. Transparency and external validation have become more important ever since. Transparency is necessary, but not sufficient. In addition, people seek independent, disinterested, credible third-party confirmation, double-checked, cross-confirmed. Now we can put everything together. In your industry, what are the necessary and accidental attributes of trustworthiness? Represented by which signs and signals? In your business, what are the signs that cannot be faked, and what are the signals that are too costly to mimic? Highlight those signs and signals and stress their implied meaning. Show, don't tell. Plant any available signal that is highly relevant and difficult and costly to fake. Connect signs and signals so that they reinforce themselves. Go where trusters are and weave a fine cobweb of circumstantial evidence for them to find. Be transparent to a maximum possible extent and arrange for ongoing external validation by multiple sources. Once you have done this, do it again and again. We did it. Do you think your personal or company trust score can be improved? Reach out to us for professional support. Thank you for watching.